Welcome to Digging In. We're in 2023, and I wanted us to slow down and really look at a focus for this year, and that is creating experiences. Want to be able to talk to you, Dr. Larry Little. Thank you for being with us today, and really talk through creating those experiences so that people can have takeaways from something that lasts more than just in the moment, something that really kind of helps ground them. So let's talk about experiences. Let's talk about even starting off, what are some experiences that you have had that stay at the top of your mind, things that you remember, things that you've even experienced?
Melissa, you ask a great question because experiences are powerful. And that's why we're focusing on being intentional about creating that here at Eagle this year. But the truth is, they're powerful in a good way and a bad way. And you ask about experiences that stick out in my mind. And I remember I was young, probably like 16, and had like a job at this clothing store in the mall. And one of my first jobs, not my first job, but one of the first. And I remember the manager of that store, how I was treated by that manager. I remember. I don't remember the words. I do remember the tone. I remember the sarcasm. I remember the, if you will, the demeaning nature with which she confronted me. And you know what I did? It was so demoralizing. And I think it was over how to fold a pair of pants on a hanger or something. Something
important.
Something,
right?
yeah, really important.
Yeah.
But boy, that I remember the experience. Ultimately quit that job after not, as a kid, as a young, I didn't have the coping skills as a young man to deal with that, and felt like, I guess in today's world, would you say I felt like I was being bullied? Maybe, but certainly not respected. So I quit, walked away eventually, and that experience has stuck with me through the years on the negative side. An experience that I don't remember exactly what was said. I remember how I felt. Now, flip that. Now there's an experience of a teacher I had. And this teacher was the first teacher that looked at me and said, I believe you can do this. I believe in you. Her name, Miss Vinson, incredible lady who took this young fourth grader, I think, and who was insecure and probably a little afraid, and she said, I'm not only going to believe in you, I'm going to give you responsibility. And she did. And she gave me this responsibility. She picked me to be on the patrol squad. I was a patrol boy. Boy, that was a big... Do I remember all that was said around all that? No, but I remember feeling like, wow, somebody believes in me. And that experience resonated. And I can still, at my age today, I can still remember that feeling of having someone in authority believe in me.
So powerful experiences are powerful, and they create memories for lifelong, right? So here at Eagle, we have chosen a theme for this year. It's extraordinary experience, and so we want to create that for our business clients. We want to create that for our team. So I want us to look at how do we do this, and why do we do this, and why is this important? So let's talk about why. What's the why behind being intentional to create experiences?
So the short answer is the power. It's powerful. Those illustrations I gave you were a lifetime ago, and I still can recall and remember them. Experiences are incredibly meaningful, good or bad. Okay, experiences. We know, Melissa, that we are predispositioned in our brain neurologically. We know that stories resonate with us. The reason stories resonate with us is because we can relate to the experience in the story. Well, that means that experiences are incredibly powerful to us psychologically. So what we wanted to do was leverage that. We wanted to create a way to have a meaningful experience that people would remember meaningful experiences that they would connect to, meaningful experiences that would change their lives. And it doesn't have to be a big experience. It could be a small thing, but the why, the short answer is because it's powerful. It's powerful.
And if we're going to spend energy and be intentional, don't we want to be able to have influence and create opportunities that people can recall and come back to and that help them feel something? So the why of that is our focus. We want to do that this year. Let's talk about how we can do that. So, our listeners, we want them to be able to apply this. Some, they're in their role and they're working in their role. Some have teams that they're responsible for. Probably on some level, everybody has a family member or somebody that they connect with and influence that this could be applicable to as well in their role as a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, whatever that may be. So let's talk about how. How do we do it?
Okay, so first, just think with me for a minute. Think about someone, a person that you really like, someone that you really you looked up to, someone that maybe this person is still living, maybe they're not, but they made an impact on your life. Think about that. Kind of think about who is it that has impacted you, or that you just think, wow, that they were a great person, or really I really enjoyed being with them. Now, think about that for a minute. Now, what did that person do? Did they lecture you? Did they spend a lot of time talking about themselves and their accolades and how good they were? No. These people invested in us through their humility, through their authenticity. We knew when we were around them that they were the real deal. They truly cared about us, that they wanted to invest or give or they wanted to speak into, if you will, even our lives, right? Well, what is that? That's creating an intentional experience. A positive way. Now, we'll say in the negative way, like we talked about earlier, someone who's narcissistic, arrogant, that kind of thing could have that same negative effect. We want to stay away from them, right? But so the way to create an experience is to remember who's the experience about. If you're trying to create an experience for people to know how good you are, well, it's going to create one. It's going to be a negative one. If you're trying to create an opportunity for someone to feel validated, for someone to feel respected, for someone to feel loved, for someone to feel heard, all of those things take intentionality. And every one of those things that I just described are experiences that we can create by choosing to invest in others. So it's a choice. It's about creating that environment, even if it's a one-on-one, even if it's in our home, in our business culture. In the business culture, do we have a win-at-all-cost mentality that we're driving? Or do we create an experience of let's serve one another, let's encourage one another? What are we doing intentionally? So to create an experience, it's not rocket science. It is intentional. It does mean to put others' interests, others' needs, others' lives even before our own at times.
So we've got to slow down, really, and we've got to do a little check, right, on where are we coming from? Are we getting in the mode where we really want to influence somebody else? We really want to have an impact. We really want to create an experience, and really getting our minds around that. If we're taskers, we have to slow down and kind of regroup, don't we? If we're people, we have to get our mind on how do we really give, and how do we really invest and do that where we're really focused on that other person in order to help them feel valued at the next level. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It really is about being intentional. If we're task driven, it's about putting that thing in neutral because someone needs our attention. If it's about, let's say we're people driven, well, it's about not talking about ourselves so much, but listening and offering those words of encouragement, or creating an experience of acceptance and inclusion to those around us. And it really, it's not about being gifted. It's not about having a skill set. It's about choosing to listen and invest in the lives of others to get to where they are. That's all it is.
So we need to be motivated. We need to be motivated by the fact that we want to create an experience. So if we do that, we've talked about work and how we can be intentional. I want to talk about home too. How do we do that as a mom, as a dad, as a brother or sister? How do we make sure we have energy left over to be able to create some experiences outside of the grind of the daily, every week? How do we do that from a family perspective?
It's so important because the environment that we create in our home will last a lifetime for our children. Will impact their lives forever. So we've got to understand that creating an environment in our home means, we go back to our word being intentional, but we've got to realize it first begins with understanding who and we think we know our children, but who are they from a personality standpoint? What do they need emotionally? What do they need mentally? What do they need to stimulate them to? How do they receive affirmation and affection? What do they need? And so once we understand that, then it's about creating opportunities to give that to them. So if we have in our home, in our vernacular around here, a turtle, which we know is a really introverted kind of passive child, we know that they may need time with us to sit and to read, or they may need to spend extended amounts of time just being together. On the opposite of that, if we have a little lion in our home, we know we got to be active. We got to give them challenges. We got to give them opportunities to go conquer hills and have that kind of chaos kind of thing going on from time to time, and that they thrive in. And it's being very aware, I think, of who we have. And then we got to realize that if we allow, and I think this is so important, if we allow our feelings to drive our parenting, we're going to fail. Feelings are not good or bad, but we certainly have the opportunity to control them and have the opportunity to learn to be disciplined, to not spew our feelings on our family, not spew our feelings on our spouse, on our significant other, but instead to say, no. I'm going to create this environment where we respect one another, we listen to one another. When I'm overwhelmed by my feelings, I'm going to have a coping mechanism over here that this is how I'm going to handle that, but it's not going to be on them. It's setting that priority, if you will, that these relationships are so important to me that I'm going to hold them carefully, and I'm going to work hard, even if I'm not comfortable. And you shouldn't be comfortable, because many times our family members have different personalities than we do, so it should be uncomfortable for you. So back up, be aware of who our family members are, what they need. Make sure that we don't allow our emotions to drive our behavior in that. Create an environment that meets their needs and not our needs, and that takes work.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Part of creating experience may even be, working together as a family to come up with a theme or come up with a focus for a certain length of time. Maybe as a team member, wanting that for your team, being able to approach your boss and talk about, hey, let's create something. Let's use some creative skill and come up with a focus so we can all get aligned. Or as a team leader, being able to have the conversations with your team to work towards, is there a focus that we can come up with and use the time so that we can, as a team, go after this and really produce and create something for others.
So many times, we'll go back to our work environment for a minute. So many times we see leaders who they just ignore this whole thing around culture. They ignore this whole thing around creating an environment for their team. So what happens when you ignore something? I mean, it goes away. It becomes toxic. It becomes negative. And then we see those leaders who do exactly what you've articulated. They invest in building a culture of safety that, hey, look, you know what? We allow failure here. Let's learn from it. In fact, we encourage it because it means you're going out trying new things. We listen to each other. We create an environment. And, I watched you on our team lead this team. I watched you lead them even this past year and create a culture of feedback. And you led them, and it took months. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of work. They were all trying to learn and figure this thing out. but you stayed with it as their leader, and then they invested, and a culture on our leadership team then began to grow around giving and receiving feedback. Now, if you hadn't set that up as a priority, well, we still wouldn't be very good at giving and receiving feedback, but we're growing in that area. Your team did a great job of working hard. But that was an intentional thing that you did, and it wasn't easy. It took months to get there.
And they were receptive.
They were receptive.
They got on board and worked really hard to give each other feedback, to continue to be committed to doing that. And we find that is what can move things forward. So we want you to be mindful of the experiences that you're creating. And as we finish up, I want to take you back to an experience that this gentleman had just probably about a year ago. And I want you to tell us about the experience of going up in a plane and doing something a little different. And something that you'll remember. You created an experience for yourself and your daughter, and something that you guys will remember for the rest of your life. So what was that experience exactly?
Well, I was just talking about that this week. So I am still remembering and experiencing that experience. So it was my 60th birthday, and my daughter, who is an adult, came to me with a present. And she said, "Dad, in this present, there are two things that you've never done before." I said, "Wow, okay." So I opened it up. One was a pedicure. Well, I've never had a pedicure. I didn't know I needed one, but I'd never had that experience. The other thing, she had two people, two little figurine things with a parachute on them. And I said, "What is this?" She goes, "Well, I want to know if you'd like to skydive out of a plane with me." Oh, it took me 1 second to go skydive. I'm choosing skydive. I didn't choose the manicure, pedicure, whatever. I know I didn't. So we got, and where we live, we're not far from the coast. And so we were down on the coast of Alabama, and we went in a little barn and got in a 1957 little prop plane that took off from the field, from grass, took off in the field, and it was like, okay, there's no runway, but here we go. And we went over the Gulf out into the water, and a perfectly good plane. It was good, but we jumped out of it. And so of course it was tandem, and I free fell for, 30, 45 seconds. And then the parachutes came out, and it was an incredible experience. Incredible perception of the landscape was beautiful when we were parachuting, although my daughter says she saw sharks circling below. I don't know. But they landed us on the beach beautifully. Wow. And we created, because of my daughter, an experience that we will talk about for a lifetime. And I can always say, I jumped out of a plane on my 60th birthday. Yes. It's a great experience.
Wow, and how courageous to do that and have fun. So we want to challenge you to make experiences with those that you interact with your team, especially your family. Be intentional this year in 2023 and see what you can do with that. Thank you. Thank you for the conversation today. And as always, thank you for being with us and being willing to dig in.
To learn more about the concepts from this video, you can find Dr. Larry Little's book, Crossing the Line, available to purchase on Amazon and our website, eaglecenterforleadership.com. You can also find the podcast, Crossing the Line with Larry Little, available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or online at eaglecenterforleadership.com. Thank you for watching.